thank you for joining us on this Friday edition. The show by below average bettors for below average bettors. We're here to talk about UFC 272, and that's the man on my left, the man in the Dijon mustard colored
Dijon.
shirt, the
Yes.
man wearing a shirt that reminds me of the UFC 200 Matt. It's Dominic Salee.
Hey,
How are you feeling, Dom?
I'm feeling good, man. We got on into the studio today. We're discussing everything, how we're doing our episode, how we're doing the nosebleeds. For one of the first things I said to Noah, man, I love this card for betting. I think it's a super exciting card. We are gonna have our biggest bet slip yet so far throughout the nosebleeds. So stay tuned. I'm excited to get rocking, Noah, and I know you are too.
Oh, completely. I think we said it at the same time. We were both just like
Yeah.
overjoyed for the betting side of this card. It feels like there's a lot. We're cooking up a big plus
Oh yeah.
week on the units, man. I know I've had a
Yeah.
couple of rough weeks, but those all taught me lessons that led me to here.
Damn right.
But before we get into it, I do want to say something off the top, Dominic, and you can actually go ahead and get our
Yeah.
uh,
Let me
our
prepare.
little recap up while I'm doing this. So
Yeah.
I want to remind everyone where they can find us, social media, whatnot. I'll let Dominic say his part. But first, for me, you can find me on at ntbaker underscore on Twitter, Instagram. If you go to my bio on either of those, there's a link that will lead you to a link tree, which will present you with a list of links to all the platforms the podcast is on, along with social media platforms. So that includes
It's not limited to.
the Twitter, the Instagram, the YouTube channel, and Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. It's all on there, along with a couple links for our good friends at Anchor.
Amen.
Now, Dominic, I'll let you give your part where you can tell me where they can find you on social media, along with where they can find the below average Joes on social media, and then we'll get right into it.
All right. Well, you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at dslee14. More importantly, you can follow us, engage with us on Twitter and Instagram at BAJ underscore MMA podcast. Let us know your bets. Let us know if you like our bets or if you think they suck. And yeah, so let's talk UFC Vegas 49, shall we?
Yeah, UFC Vegas 49. So not too bad as far as the
Yeah.
tandem goes. It was a plus week. That's all we need. We just need plus weeks to keep moving
Yes.
forward. But once again, I'm kind of bringing up the rear here. I mean, we've had differing strategies so far. Dominic has went with the less is more approach. He's went simply off of what am I super confident is going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
And he's played it safe in that way. And I think that's not saying that to be like a dick. I think that's a good thing. I think it's worked out for you. You went 2 for 2 on this night. Well, for me, I've been more like throwing a lot at the wall and see what sticks. Is sort of the mentality.
Yeah.
I've went very, comparatively speaking, I guess, not maybe compared to some of you other people that run MMA betting shows, but I have been throwing a lot of singles, a lot of parlays together, trying to see what am I good at, what can I predict accurately, and I'm having a lot of troubles with the over/unders on rounds. Yes, I got the Nunes Pascal fight, which was a little dicey, let me just say.
Yeah.
But then the Perez Martinez fight, man, that was such a frustrating one to watch because even though it was never really close to being finished, I mean, Alejandro Perez essentially would get beat for 4 minutes and 50 seconds by Jonathan Martinez. And then in the last 10 seconds of a round, he would drop Martinez.
It was crazy.
And, it just became a very frustrating fight to watch. But I knew that one was a bit risky. The one that really hurt, though, Terrence McKinney, my boy.
Oh,
My man. I love Terrence McKinney. But did he really have to go for that submission in the first round? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
He could have just kept hitting him with the ground and pound,
Yeah.
But that one definitely hurt. But besides that, like, look, the parlays. I mean, the one that didn't come to fruition, like that Petrosian Rodriguez fight was so crazy. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, that fight probably doesn't go to distance. But Kim Cachoeira did. But you guys know that I was not too happy after that fight either. So. Dominic, I'm going to let you give your thoughts on UFC Vegas 49 before we move on.
Yeah, I mean, really, for me, I hit the 2-leg parlay, but we both sprinkled Islam. We both had Ramiz Brahimaj. I had him by sub, but I just felt like that was it was playing it safe, but to come out in plus money, I think was nice. And of course, Rongzhu and Bahamundé's great fight. It got dicey. I had only had 50 seconds left, so they were cutting it close.
Yeah.
But Bahamundé got the submission win, by the way, which was crazy. The first submission of his career. But it was a good week, especially when you're hitting two things that came out in the plus side of things. So hopefully we can keep the momentum going. Like you said, we're back into the plus column. We're back in the green, and now going into our biggest week yet. We need that momentum more than ever.
And I'm going to say this, and this might be the kiss of death as we move on. You can go ahead and switch it back, but it feels like for pay-per-views, typically pay-per-views are where we do better. I mean, you have guys that we're more accustomed to watching, bigger stars, bigger fights across the board. On this card, there's like 9 or 10 fights that would have been the co-main event on last week's card. That's the difference between the pay-per-views. So, I think UFC 270 wasn't the best for us, but 271 we did really well.
Yeah, we're like 1-1. So
yeah. It seems like, though, I feel more confident when I come into pay-per-views. And this week's going to be the same. We'll see if I end up having to eat crow on that one. But let's start with the main event Moneyline, Dominic. It's the friends turned enemies fight that everyone's waiting for. Yeah. Colby Covington, the number 1 ranked welterweight behind Kamaru Usman, the champion, at minus 320, going up against his former best friend turned enemy, number 6, the BMF, Jorge Masvidal, at plus 250. Truthfully, Dominic, these odds don't surprise me at all. It feels like how people are evaluating these two. Both have back-to-back title fight losses to Kamaru Usman, or both have lost twice, I should say. Colby had a fight in between with Tyron Woodley that he dominated. Jorge did fight back-to-back title fights. It feels like Colby Covington walked away from those 2 title fights, and the majority opinion was, okay, he is like clearly the number 2 welterweight in the world. Like,
very
if
much.
Kamaru Usman didn't exist, Colby Covington will be the number 1 pound-for-pound fighter and this long-standing champion. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
Wow, when Jorge Masvidal lost for the second time against Usman, I felt like a lot of people thought, oh, well, he's just not as good as we thought he was in 2019. Or maybe he's slowing down, he's getting older, he's not that guy. He's not an elite-level fighter, seems to be where a lot of the discussion goes on Masvidal. And some of that might be because he's reached a certain star level where he's not as active anymore, and people just sort of, they don't like a lot of those guys that aren't really in the game anymore. And, Masvidal has sort of taken a step back, but it's a big fight. But I want to get your thoughts on these odds. I mean, do you kind of understand and or agree with where they're standing right now?
Very much so. I think these odds do make sense when you look at, obviously, the styles between the two and how they match up, but also just, even though Colby's coming off of a loss, still has so much momentum. It feels like, he had momentum. It felt like when he lost the first time to Kamaru.
That second title fight, I know Usman dropped him a couple times, but dare I say, Colby could have won that fight on the scorecards, and it wouldn't have been like a robbery.
Oh, it was a badass fight. To me, just as entertaining as the first one. Not as swing and bang, but I was just as much intrigued and into it from start to finish. Then he sandwiched that win against Tyron Woodley where he finished him in the 5th. Then he loses again, but it just, there's still momentum on his side. He really has. You kind of mentioned this in the preview, and I didn't get to comment on it, but he has kind of put himself with the Masvidals. I don't want to say he's like on the Nate Diaz level, but he really is one of the biggest names in the UFC. I feel comfortable saying that. So you're pairing him with another huge name with Jorge Masvidal. It just has that big fight feel to it, even though there's no belt on the line. It's an important fight. You have the storylines mixed in. And for Jorge, he has been less active lately after that phenomenal 2019. But I still just think, and we talked about this too, his skill set is severely underrated as a whole. People are going to look at it and say, Colby's the grappler, Jorge's the striker, but there's way more to this fight than that. And for that reason alone, at plus 250, Jorge is still very much a live dog. I think this can be a fun fight. I think it can be a one-sided fight, but the odds, as they're sitting right now, do make sense in terms of where both guys are at right now.
Yeah, I tend to be more on the side of I think this is a much closer fight than those odds will tell you. Yes, of course, it's in the back of my head that Colby Covington may dominate this fight with his wrestling and pace for 5 rounds. I understand that, but
Yeah.
I still value Jorge Masvidal and view him as an elite level fighter. And maybe some of you do too that think Colby's going to dominate him. I mean, Colby is, by all accounts, the second best welterweight in the world right now. So I mean,
Yes.
and he's right there. It's not a super big gap from Usman to him, in my opinion. But for Masvidal, I think his skill set does present some problems for Colby. Yes, Colby's going to have a big advantage if it comes to wrestling, if he gets top position, gets those takedowns, and I'm sure he will. Masvidal has great cardio, even though Colby, again, better cardio, probably
Different level,
best
yeah.
cardio, but Jorge's not going to get tired in this fight, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, I'm not, Colby has used his cardio as a weapon. I don't think that's really the fight here. Now, Jorge's going to have an advantage in the striking. But for me, what I'm more interested in is those level change battles. When Colby goes for the takedown, I think Jorge has the ability to not allow him to. I think he has a great takedown defense. He has great striking defense, as shown in moments in that first Kamaru Usman fight.
Yeah.
Obviously, there was a lot of takedowns in between that, but that was a fight he took on 5 days' notice. So I think this is a much closer fight. I completely understand why the odds are the way they are, but I think it's based on a lot of misunderstanding about where these two stand. I mean, Masvidal has fought twice in 2 years, and they're both losses, but both to the champion for title fights. That doesn't tell me he's washed up. That tells me that he's just not the best fighter in this division. Nobody else is besides Kamaru Usman, so...
Yeah, and for what it's worth, people too, I don't know how much of a narrative it is now because they haven't trained together in so long, but there still is that feel. They've been in there a lot with each other, training, sparring, so on and so forth. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses, they know how they feel inside of a cage, so that's still a factor to be considered moving forward. It's a fun fight, man. It is much closer, I agree, than what the odds are saying.
Now let's move on to the pick and fight of the week. This is the fight that as it stands here on Wednesday evening, have the closest odds. Again, these odds all coming from DraftKings Sportsbook. So our pick and fight of the week for UFC 272 is Nicolae Negumereanu at plus 125, going up against Kennedy Nzechukwu at minus 145. The battle of
names.
last names.
Yes.
So Dominic, as you evaluate this fight, I maybe we'll go ahead and sprinkle this here, but this is a fight that me and you both have a vested interest in.
Yeah, we I don't want to give it away, but we do we like the dog a little bit in this one. What can we say? But it's one of those fights where it makes sense. Nicolae, he's 2-1 in the UFC. Kennedy is 3-2. He had 2 fights on the Contender Series, so he came in with a lot of hype, and he's been good. But when he loses, it really just tells me a lot about him. And so I'm still not 100% sold on his potential. Whereas for Nicolae, we've seen a little less of him. So it's not like I have this, superstar potential champion kind of mindset with him. But I just think he has a skill set that can really cause issues for Nzechukwu here in this fight. And he's a finisher to his core. He's good grappling. He's still dangerous on the feet. I think Kennedy is going to have that overall power advantage if it stays on the feet for a prolonged amount of time. But Nicolae is just a little bit better all around and everywhere. So it is the closest fight, on paper for the odds. And I can see why that is. But if there's any dog to be had there where there could be money sprinkled, it would be, Nicolae at plus 155. It piques my interest, this fight, and kind of how it's going to go. Because I could truthfully see either guy win convincingly or maybe not so convincingly. It's a weird one.
Both guys impressed me on the feet, but I like Nicolae's more defensively sound. I like his
Yeah.
consistency
Yeah.
more. Kennedy is always coming from behind to win.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the problem. I mean, he's had huge comebacks. The Carlos Ulberg fight, he was getting dominated. Came
Mm-hmm.
back after Ulberg pretty much uh, basically got super tired from punching Kennedy in the face. I believe
Yeah.
one of Kennedy's wins before that, I can't remember who it was against. It was the same kind of story where Kennedy was down and he just kind of outlasted his opponents. Which, don't get me
Yeah.
wrong, it's hard to use that like against him because it is a benefit to going with Kennedy is that he's durable and he'll
Yeah.
hang in there. But I think we saw it in his last loss that he's a lot greener than I think people want to believe right now.
Yeah.
And Nicolae, while less experienced and maybe less known at this point, I think he's further along in his development. So I'm going more with the more consistent product right now, at least in my head, and you'll see on my bet slip as well.
I like it.
Let's get on to the dog of the week. This is the guy on the card who is an underdog that we are most confident in, I think is the way to put it. So, Dominic, a lot of options here. Again, a very interesting card, but who is your dog of the week for UFC 272?
Man, I'm actually going with former title challenger Tim Elliott. He's a plus 205 underdog right now against Tahir Ulanbekov, who's closing at minus 255 as of Wednesday evening. You know, at a 2-1 dog, Tim Elliott, it's the experience is the biggest thing for me in this fight. He's been in there with guys like Demetrius Johnson and all these other great fighters, truthfully, at flyweight, and he's always going to fly under the radar, as does the whole division, which is unfortunate. If you've been listening to us for a long time, you know we're huge advocates of the 125ers, and I just think Ulanbekov is going to look to grapple, right? But Elliott is a really good grappler in his own right. He has submissions that he can pull, and on the feet, I think Tim can go tit for tat with him there. So, you know, with the odds being as lopsided as they are, I think there is value there in Tim Elliott. I'm not saying he's going to come in here and just starch, you know, the younger guy, but it is potential to have an upset here. I like the experience. I like the well-rounded skill set. I think he can pose problems to the younger, newer guy here in Ulanbekov.
I like it. I like it. For me, nobody's going to like this one. I can feel it. The streets are going to come calling about this one. They are not going to be happy that I am picking my dog of the week to be your main card opener, Greg Hardy.
Oh, boy.
At plus 170. The former Carolina Panthers defensive end. Look, I get it. I'm not happy that Greg Hardy's like being put on all these main cards. I don't know the guy. Personal stuff aside, like whatever, he's in the UFC. If you look at the skill sets here, I understand why a lot of people might think Sergey Spivak is just a better fighter.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing it longer. He's got the ground game, which is going to be a benefit to him against Greg Hardy. But if I can say something positive about Greg Hardy, he is a UFC caliber striker. When it comes to his striking in the heavyweight division, he is UFC caliber. He's quite good at times whenever he's not running in for the knockout against Tai Tuivasa. Let's not forget, he wobbled Tai Tuivasa bad with a really nice shot. But this is a bad matchup for Spivak, I think. Spivak is a slow, plodding grappler who's going to look to kind of clinch up Greg Hardy and drag him to the ground. Greg Hardy is crazy athletic, is very explosive and powerful, and a threat on the feet. So for Spivak, who's going to look to get in tight, close that distance, I mean, you're bound to run into a clean hook or jab from Greg Hardy, and I don't know how many of those Spivak can take before he's out. Now, of course, if Spivak takes this fight to the ground, I mean, Greg Hardy showed against who's that fight?
Well, he fought
Marcin Tybura.
Thank you. I was blanking.
He almost knocked out Tybura, but then Tybura, just being durable, was able to get the round 2. And then when the fight got to the ground, Hardy looked kind of lost.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing here. I mean, I'm sure Hardy's working in there. From all accounts, he's apparently a workhorse in the gym, but I still think there's going to be levels if this fight gets to the ground for any extended period of time. But
Yeah.
I truthfully am kind of leaning on Hardy to get this done early. That's sort of my thinking there.
Yeah, you shocked me by making him your dog of the week, but it is very, very possible to have upset potential there.
Hmm. Now let's get on to
Oh
the
boy.
below average bet slip. This is where me and Dominic come together and we put together our consensus bet slip for the below average Joes, for the nosebleeds, for this card. Now, Dominic, we both are going a little big this week. I mean, that's no surprise to me, but dare I say, Dominic is going
I'm
pretty
getting
big here
ballsy.
as well.
Yeah.
So we got 10 total for you guys.
Woo.
I will give 2 first, and then we'll go back and forth, back and forth. How about that?
Okay. Sounds good.
So I'm going to start with my singles. First off, Sergey Spivak, Greg Hardy. I just talked about that fight. I'm not taking Greg Hardy money line, even though I picked him as the dog of the week. I'm not gonna pick him outright, but I do think this fight will go under 1.5 rounds. That's plus 120. Now, is more of my confidence in that based on a Greg Hardy early knockout? Yes, but if Spivak is able to get this fight to the ground early, he's a submission threat. I think he's a threat when it comes to ground and pound.
Yep.
I think there's definitely ways he can win this fight inside of a round and a half. So to me, plus 120, I feel like this is really good value here. And then also, I'm going to chance it again. I've not done too well when I've been taking the method of victory route outside of Andrei Arlovsky by decision.
What are the odds?
But Kevin Holland by KO/TKO is going to be the route I go here. I just think that he is a sizable favorite over Alex Oliveira. And while you are correct, you mentioned this to me, Alex Oliveira has lost 2 of his last 3 fights via submission. I think Kevin Holland can get this fight done on the feet. And if not, I think he's just going to be able to hurt Oliveira on the feet, and then he just finishes it with the TKO, or he can put him out outright. And that's at plus 110. It's going to be in the back of my head, like, obviously, that a submission is a possibility. But for me, I'm playing what I feel most confident in, despite what Alex Oliveira has been through his last couple fights. The threat for Kevin Holland to me is on the feet.
Yeah, I like those, man. I guess I'll do singles first. We'll save the parlays for last. So I'll start with. I'll save the one because I know we have one of the same. So I'll start with Marina Rodriguez, as a matter of fact. Really high on her. She had such an amazing 2021. Went 3-0, had 2 main events. I'm going with Rodriguez to win by decision at plus 100 over Zhao Nanyan. I think it's going to be 100% on the feet. We've got 2 people that are strikers, but in every facet is what I wanted to say on the feet, I think Marina just has the upper hand. She's longer. She's a better distance striker. She's better in the clinch. I just think anywhere the fight goes on the feet, she's going to be better than Jan. I think she can really piece her up. I don't foresee a finish. You know, she looked great when that fight against Amanda Hebos really cracked her with shots that she didn't see coming. Zhao Nanyan a little bit more put together on the feet than I think Hebos was, especially at that time. So for that reason alone, I think they do go tit for tat. I think Jan even has her moments, but overall, over the course of 3 rounds, I see Marina getting this done and taking the decision victory en route to her 4th straight win and a potential title shot, Noah.
Well said. And actually, I might do 2 in a row here just because I'm going to take the one that we both have.
And segue.
So
Nice.
We both have via Moneyline the man we just mentioned on the pick and fight of the week, Nicolae Negumereanu at plus 125.
Yes.
I made that mistake when I wrote it here, but plus 125, that means that's 2 units for the Joes on the bet slip for Nicolae via Moneyline. Again, everything we said there is kind of what could be applied here. It's just he's more consistent. I feel like he's further along. I think Dominic kind of agrees. That's why we're going that route. And Kennedy, up to this point, has most of even his wins have had a lot of negative takeaways in terms of the performance. So that's why we're going with Nicolae there. Also, my last single here, the Tim Elliott Tahir Ulanbekov fight. Now, Dominic mentioned Tim Elliott as his dog of the week. I'm not super confident in that, but I do like this fight to go the distance at
Yeah,
minus
yeah.
135. It's a decent favorite to do that, but minus 135 is still pretty good value there. And
Hmm.
for two guys that don't typically finish, I mean, flyweight typically is like, it's kind of like what I say about the women's MMA fights. Like, there's a greater chance of a fight going to distance than being finished in this division.
Right.
So for these two, I kind of see Ulanbekov getting the win, and I really think his way to do that is to kind of use his grappling for 3 rounds. But Tim Elliott is definitely going to be in this fight for sure. I'm certain of that, and I still say either way it goes the distance.
Yeah, I agree for sure. I guess we got all parlays to finish it out,
Mm-hmm.
huh? Well, I'm going to start with, well, it's still exciting, but I really like my other one. So I'm going to start with this one first. This is a 3-leg all money line parlay. The odds come out to be plus 131. So we're in the plus money here. We've got the first leg being Umar Nurmagomedov. He's the biggest favorite on the card at minus 675. We kind of talked about last week trying to sprinkle Islam in. I'm kind of in the same boat here. How can I use Umar to get value in some of these bets? So I think attaching him to a parlay is a good one. Don't get me wrong, it's a tough fight against Brian Kelleher, a big test, but it's one where I just think Nurmagomedov has a chance to say, hey, I'm the real deal. I can take out a veteran and really prove my worth. Second leg, Maria Agapova. I'm really high on her. I know she had that one loss to Shayna Dobson where she was a massive favorite and ended up getting TKO'd, I think, in the second round. But outside of that, she's really, really good. She's very strong, very well-rounded, only 24 years old. She's that next wave of the women's flyweights that I talk about all the time. She's a minus 180 in a bit of a grudge match, if you will, on the prelims. In the third and final leg, Mr. Kevin Holland. I went back and forth on this all day. I originally had him in a single bet with a prop, and I'm like, I don't know about this. I ended up squeezing him in here to get a little bit more value both ways. So I made him the third leg. I think he gets the job done over Alex Cowboy Oliveira. I think he's a little bit better everywhere. He's younger, he's fresher, he's bigger, he's longer, and I'm excited to see him make his UFC debut at 170. All those factors combined, Noah, puts him in my parlay plus 131.
I like it. I have one of my two parlays here, both 2 legs. This one, I don't know what you call this. Call this like the marathon.
Marathon. That's
this
a
is
good
gonna
one.
be
Yeah.
the marathon parlay because I'm taking 2 fights to go to distance here. First one's gonna be our opener, Dustin Jacoby versus Michael.
Damn it.
Oleachik. I like both these guys. They're both very, very good fighters. They're solid fighters, very durable fighters, and I am depending on that durability to carry through. Now, that's going to be the same in our next leg here. Brian Kelleher, Umar Nurmagomedov also to go the distance. The first one, Jacoby Mikhail, or Michael, however you want to say it, plus 120. This leg, minus 120. I'm really depending on the durability of all the participants and really a lot of their fight styles to kind of extend fights. Not necessarily getting fights done early most of the time. So I like everyone's chances here to really hang in there and at least see the judges' scorecards. Overall, those 2 legs, plus 303. I'm pretty sure this is my highest valued parlay to date. So I like the odds on that one.
Yeah, I like it, but I hate it, Noah, at the same time. For those that saw me chuckle when he mentioned the Jacoby and Oleg Jacek fight to kick off the prelims, I actually have it here, and this is my banger parlay is what I'm going to call this one because it's 3 legs, all of which I have to not go the distance. It comes out to plus 247 in total. As I just said, I've got that fight that Noah had. Jacoby, look, he's finished 11 out of 16, but he's lost 3 out of 5 via stoppage. For Michael, he's finished 12 out of 16, but he's lost all 4 via stoppage. So I'm throwing that one in there. Second leg, these last 2 fights, I'm just so extremely excited for. We've got Devontae Smith and Ludovic Klein. It's minus 225 to not go the distance, which means it's expected to not last very long, to put it quite frank. Smith has finished every single one of his wins, and he's been finished in every single one of his losses. And for Klein, he's finished 16 out of 17. He's been finished 3 out of 4 losses. I think that's going to be a really good fight. Both those fights go back to back, by the way, the first 2 fights of the night. So our parlays may or may not be in shambles at the very first fight of the night. And then the third and final leg, Jalen Turner and Jamie Malarkey. It's minus 200 to not go the distance. Jalen, much like Smith, has finished all 11 of his wins. He's been finished 3 out of 5. Malarkey's finished 13 out of 14 and lost 2 out of 4 via stoppage. I love all 3 of these fights. I think each one of them have fight of the night potential. And obviously I feel none of them are going to go all 15 minutes. It's plus 247 now on the 3-leg parlay.
Nice. And then my final parlay here, also 2 legs. Marina Rodriguez by decision, first up, plus 100, just like Dominic had mentioned earlier, but not 2 units technically because it's a parlay here. So,
right.
Everything he said, I could say here. I really like Marina Rodriguez. Also, second leg, Moneyline, Rafael dos Anjos at minus 165. I really like Renato Moicano. I've really reaped his praises for the last few weeks, but to take this test, what a badass move. But you're taking this fight on 5 days' notice against one of the most consistent fighters in the division. It's still going to be 5 rounds at 160 pounds. I'm surprised that the odds are as close as they are because, again, Moicano, while always showing a lot of potential in his career, has never beaten someone on the caliber of RDA. And hasn't really came close to beating a fighter of this caliber. He's been matched up with a lot of high-caliber fighters, Jose Aldo off the top of the head. But, he looked fantastic in his last fight against Alexander Hernandez. It's a big jump to go from him to RDA. I think Moicano is going to show a lot of people what he's made of here, but I do think RDA, being consistent, will consistently win this fight. And overall, that parlay comes out to plus 221. I love the value on that one as well.
Yeah.
And that's going to do it that's it for you, right?
Yeah, that's it. Our biggest bet slip to date, ladies and gentlemen.
So that's going to wrap it up for this edition of the Nosebleeds. Let us know what plays you're making this week. Who's your dog of the week? What do you think of the pick and fight of the week? All that. Let us know your thoughts on the main event. Is anybody out there going to put money on Masvidal? Anybody putting money on this fight to not go to distance? I was considering that one, but couldn't pull the trigger. So you can let us know all of that again by using those links in the link tree, commenting on social media, commenting on this video, and maybe we'll respond to you. So that's it, Dominic. We're out. We'll be back next Friday. Peace out.